Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's mini lecture on critical theory. According to scholar Douglas Kellner, a contemporary critical theorist, the primary elements of critical theory are that it is multidisciplinary, systemic, and a comprehensive social theory that is formed by a critique of capitalist domination, as well as being a theory of liberation. It is sharply critical of modernity because it sees modern institutions and their problems as outgrowths of capitalism. And so it focuses on interrelationships among economic, political, social, and cultural spheres. So it's opposed to disciplinary boundaries, so kind of boundaries between economics, politics, sociology, etc. It's opposed to those boundaries and prefers interconnections over divisions. It's deeply historical, and it maintains the importance of history and context when looking at social issues. This one is super important to me in particular. I think that the historical element of critical theory makes it really quite interesting. Critical theory is in many ways rooted in the work of the Frankfurt School. The well-known theorists of the Frankfurt School, Felix Weil, Walter Benjamin, Max Horkheimer, and Theodor Adorno, were deeply influenced by Karl Marx and Max Weber. They were Marxists who saw shortcomings with Marx's economic determinism and instead emphasized these interconnections between culture, politics, society, and the economy. So their approach shifts away from the economic focus of traditional Marxists to a more holistic approach. Following the Russian Revolution and the arrival of Nazism in Germany, this group of academics from the University of Frankfurt, most of whom were Jewish, emigrated to the United States and ended up founding the Institute for Social Research at Columbia University. Their approach later became known as the Frankfurt School and critical theory. So young intellectuals across Germany were frustrated by the failures of the Russian and German revolutions and were dispirited by their experiences during the First World War. These young radicals, as they became known, were fed up with orthodox Marxism. They saw it as too limited, too deterministic, and too dogmatic. Instead, they favored what they called a philosophy of praxis, which is an action-oriented, dialectical analysis of capitalism and capitalist society as a totality. So again, this is them really thinking big picture and looking at the interconnections of all of these different spheres. As Douglas Kellner writes, the individuals who would produce critical theory thus conceived of Marxism as an open-ended, historical, dialectical theory that required development, revision, and modification precisely because it was, they believed, a theory of contemporary socio-historical reality, which itself was constantly developing and changing. They wanted to use their adapted version of Marxism to more effectively change their entire social world. I'm about to show you a cartoon, and I've also posted this cartoon in the mini lecture page in Canvas. And in this picture, you'll see that the Frankfurt School theorists were marrying Marx and Freud. Feel free to pause the video for a minute or so you can read the entire cartoon. So as this cartoon points out, the critical theorists of the Frankfurt School were profoundly impacted by both the rise of authoritarianism and totalitarianism in Europe. And they were frightened by the mass society they saw in America during the interwar years. I'm going to show you another cartoon for your review, which is also posted in Canvas. Again, please pause the video to take a moment to read this carefully. This one's a little bit challenging. So what we see here is that the critical theorists of the Frankfurt School were frankly quite horrified by what they saw as the dumbing down of the American public through mass communication. They thought of this mass consciousness that they saw as exactly the kind of precursor to the fascism and totalitarianism that they had already experienced and that they really deeply feared would eliminate the possibility of a mass awakening. So if you remember anything about Marx from your undergraduate studies, without this mass awakening, there could be no revolution, and that would be revolution in the Marxist sense. Without a revolution, there would be no end to capitalism's control of labor, and that means capitalism's control of us, because we are the labor. And Herbert Marcuse's 1964 book, One Dimensional Man, is referenced in this cartoon, and it describes exactly this dumbing down of the populace and complete control of labor by capital. But for the Frankfurt School theorists, there is a way out of this rather unpleasant situation. As you'll see, this week's reading is a polemic. That is, the Adorno and Horkheimer essay is an intentionally provocative and challenging piece that is meant to draw attention to the fact that the public is slumbering. We're not paying attention, they argue. And it is the public which the authors hope to awaken. In the end, Adorno and Horkheimer, and if you choose to read the optional reading by Benjamin, they subscribe to the notion articulated in that cartoon that I just showed, that it's up to a small group of men, we'll forgive them their misogyny for the moment, or certain individuals and certain arts to right our ship and to essentially save us all. There are loads of free resources and references online if you'd like to learn more about the critical theorists of the Frankfurt School and the critical theorists who followed in their footsteps. Here are the references I used for this presentation along with this week's reading. And this is an important one to just kind of get a grasp of in terms of critical theory, because it really will inform both cultural studies, which will come later in the quarter, and political economy, which is coming up as well.